My name's Jeff Bisset, and I'm going to be talking to you today about a data goldmine, how smart brands leverage their customer data for profits. Really what I want to talk about here is customer data that you've collected in your business and how to make that data really work for you. When I say work, what we want the data to do is we want it to do three things. We want to help improve the loyalty of our existing customers. And so in this workshop today, I'm going to try and take you through those three things and show you how data can build loyalty, how to grow relationships, and how to use data for acquisition purposes. Data is the new gold. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This is really what branding is about, is how does an interaction with a customer make them feel? And done right, you can make a customer feel great. And done poorly, you can make a customer have very negative feelings about you and your brand. And data is at the heart of that. Marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but it's about the stories that you tell. Seth Godin, I'm sure you've all heard of Seth, a famous marketing author and professor in New York. And he really talks about stories, and the story is in the data. And the accumulation of that behavior becomes the story. And being relevant to that story means being relevant to the customer. AI, there's been a few workshops on AI. Everybody needs to have AI in their businesses today. We're all thinking about what's our AI strategy. What a lot of places aren't thinking about, a lot of brands aren't thinking about yet, is recognizing that AI isn't just a technology. So, of course, AI is an amazing technology, but that technology, like so many other technologies that are used in marketing and business operations, is only as effective as the data that trains the AI. What we're going to be talking about today is how to optimize that data so that when you do put an AI layer on top of it, you are able to get the best results. We used to say in the early days that computers can do millions of processes an hour. Computers can also make millions of mistakes an hour, and they make mistakes when you give them poor inputs. So this was a quote by Casey Klavikoff. He's the director of AI for Google. And along the same lines here, that the data is only as good as the data that is trained on it. And lastly, everybody's favorite is garbage in, garbage out. The data that we're using drives everything that we're doing. And if our data quality is poor going in, then the results we're going to get is poor coming out. Now, let me introduce myself. My name's Jeff. I'm the founder of a company called CleanList. I spent 20 years working with some of the largest brands in Canada. Some of my clients are Amazon, Costco, WestJet, Royal Bank, political parties, and so on. And I've worked with these massive organizations to help them get the most from their customer data. So my goal for you today is to kind of take you through at a high level what some of the problems are with data first, then what some of the opportunities are. Once you have good data, what are some of the things that you can do with that data to really generate an ROI in your business? And then give you a high-level game plan for how you go about getting from wherever you are to where you need to be, that you've got a top-performing data organization. This is a conference for retailers and D2C or direct-to-customer organizations. So the headline here is that most retailers and DTC organizations face a huge problem. But the problem is that 42% of their customer data is wrong. That's 4 in 10 customers in your database have wrong data. So we work with 150-ish brands in Canada and manage their data for them. And we do, at the beginning of every engagement, we do what we call a data assessment, where we bring in the data and we score it. And these are the results of our scores, that only 60% of the data that they actually already have. I'm not talking about data that's missing. This is the data that they have, a name, an address, an email address, or a telephone number. So you can imagine the damage that this data is doing when they're sending out direct mail programs, when they're using that data in their customer contact center to talk to customers on the phone, or when they're trying to drive a personalized experience on a website with this data underneath it that's just wrong and outdated. So huge number of problems. So brands everywhere are using this flawed data, and it's cutting the return on investment that they get from their marketing initiatives in half. And that's best case. I want to show you what some of these top performing brands are doing. These are some of the smartest data marketers on the planet. And what are they doing to take advantage of their data? And anybody can go out and buy AI tools. Anybody can go out and buy software and website tools. But your data is really unique to your organizations. And so recognizing the value in that proprietary data that you've built and truly leveraging it can create a competitive advantage. It's very difficult for anyone else who's trying to take those customers away to trump. So now what I'm going to talk about is what we call data roadkill. So this is, what does bad data do in your organization? First, it ruins CX, the customer experience. If I've got data in my database that's duplicated or it's outdated or it's incomplete, and I'm trying to use that data to serve the customer, obviously the customer experience that I'm delivering is much less than ideal. Okay? So this is what we mean, ruining the customer experience. It fools AI. So when AI only works as well as the data that you feed it. We feed it bad data. It fools the AI to thinking that it's correct data, and it goes on to make more mistakes and to propagate that across your programs. It skews your analytics. You may be doing simple things like saying, how many customers do we have in a certain area? Well, if your customer, the same customer, is duplicated 4 or 5 times in your database, which is a very common occurrences in these big organizations, then the analytics, the penetration, the market share statistics, everything that you're producing as a result of that data is just wrong, right out of the starting gate. It destroys efficiency. So how many of you have worked in an organization where the data was bad and it caused some problem? Maybe you're trying to serve a customer and you're apologizing for the data. I'm sorry, we had this wrong. We had your address wrong, so that's why you didn't get your shipment that you were supposed to get, or your check that we were trying to send to you, or whatever. Inside any large organization, you can talk to people who work in these organizations with the data on the front line, and they're very well aware of all the problems there are with the data inside their systems, and constantly apologizing for it. So this is costing the organization all kinds of time and efficiency problems. And probably the most important thing at all is kind of what I touched on in the beginning, is the brand. How do you make your customers feel? And if you can't even get their name and address right on a package or a communication that gets sent out to them, it really demonstrates to the customer that clearly, you don't care much about it, or your organization is so screwed up that you can't even get the basic facts about your customers correct, let alone the product and service that you're trying to deliver to them. One of the worst is when when someone passes away and you don't know it, and you start sending out invitations to a deceased person, and the family members receive this and they just think, what a terrible thing that my bank or my my insurance company does it, or the fundraising thing that we've donated to for years and years doesn't even know that my husband or my wife has passed away, and they're sending this mail to them. So it really does a big number on your brand. So what makes the data garbage? These are some examples of what garbage data is. Garbage data is missing pieces, meaning you don't have a complete record on the customer. It's outdated. That data might have been right when the customer came in and did something with your store 2 or 3 or 5 years ago, but lots have changed. They've moved since then. They've changed phone numbers. They got an email address, and you don't have any of that information. Duplication is a huge problem. You've got the same customer in multiple locations. Sometimes your customer presents with a different name. Maybe they use Jeffrey one time and Jeff another, or just Jay. And you need to be able to bring that data together to know that I'm talking about one person, not 2 or 3 people here. badly formatted data. If anybody here works in an older organization, banks, especially companies with these legacy systems, the user interfaces on the computer software just has a bunch of fields on it where the operator or whoever is entering data can type stuff into fields, and there's no validation on that. You can type in whatever, right? So you find the last name is in the first name fields, and the first name is in the last name field, and you got a phone number where there's supposed to be a postal code. So the data is all disorganized within a record. And then data that's simply unverified and unreliable. So you look at a customer record and you think, okay, I'm gonna make a personal approach to this customer using this data. How confident do I feel that I'm not gonna look like a fool when I do that, and I'm not gonna tarnish my brand? A lot of organizations, a lot of the marketers that we work with are very reluctant to execute highly personal programs, although they have the technology and the smarts to do that, but don't trust the data underneath. So what makes data valuable is data that's accurate, data that's reliable, and data that's complete. If you can achieve that on all of your customer records, then you can start layering on top of that all of these different technologies and strategies that make you a true data-driven organization. So how do I build a high-quality data foundation? So I'm going to take you through 6 steps here of what you need to do to properly manage data. First, we need to eliminate silos. So you may belong to an organization where you have multiple versions of the same customer record in different systems. Maybe you got your CRM, you got your email, you got your point of sale, or your web store. All of those different systems could have different versions of the same customer. This is a big problem in the retail organization when everybody started to go from just brick and mortar stores to web stores. So each of the brick and mortar stores had their own system, a point of sale system where they have all the customer data. And then there's a different database on Shopify or on whatever platform their web store is on. And those two systems didn't talk to one another. So a customer goes into the brick and mortar store and buys something, and then the next week they buy something at the web store, and the marketing and customer loyalty people aren't able to assimilate those and recognize that that's the same customer utilizing the experience through different channels. Right? So that's what we call data silos. So you want to eliminate those. You want to have what we call one source of truth. So you have one database and everything connects to that one database. So when a change is made, every channel gets the benefit of that change. Now you want to validate your data on input. So every time you have a data entry field, whether it's the customer entering the data directly on the web, or whether it's customer service or salespeople entering data into a system, every field needs to have a validation around it so that it captures only valid data. For instance, if it's a phone number, then it should be an area code plus 7 digits. You shouldn't be able to put letters in the phone number field. You should have to enforce that the address field gets completed. You can validate that the first name field only has first names in it and nothing else. Now, you want to be able to link your customer data to behavior. Now, behavior in our world is the actual activities that a customer performs with your organization. So whether that's a purchase, a phone call, a return, a visit to a store, a visit and a login on your website, all of these are behaviors that your customers have engaged in, and you want to be able to link those behaviors as if they were transactions and link them back to a customer so that you can build a story and you can see this customer's journey and their interaction with your store. This is very important. Is in any kind of a database system that you build for your business, you want to make sure that your date stamp in every time you touch a customer record. So when you create the record, you want to know what date did I create this record and how was it created? If it's an operator's name who did it, if it was done on a website, what version of the website or something, so that you can track back where did the data come from. This data accumulates very quickly. And if you don't know where it came from in the first place, you will, looking back at data you've collected over 2 and 3 years, it can become a real mess to know which version of certain records is the most current one. Third-party enrichments. So you might have only a name and address for one of your customers, but you can go to external data sources and you can buy demographic data, for instance, to know, is that customer live in a house or an apartment? Is it owned or rented? What level of income do they have? Do they have children? They live in a rural area or an urban area? A lot of demographics are available to enhance your customer record and give you a deeper view into who your customers are. So this becomes very important in the later phases of the process where we're trying to use our data for segmentation and targeting. Moving and triggers is another one that I put on here. So customers who move, you can keep track of that. You can identify when one of your customers in your database has moved from one location to another, and that's a lifestyle change. That's a trigger that a lifestyle change has occurred, and you can follow that trigger with what products and services would be helpful for that customer at that point in their journey. So, for instance, you're a furniture store and one of your customers is relocating, then you have a pretty good idea that they're going to be in the market for some new furniture, right? And so that trigger can be very useful for marketing. And then lastly, when we talk about customer data, we often describe customer data as like bananas. It looks good on the day you get it, but 5 days later, it doesn't look so good anymore. So customer data is constantly decaying. And it decays because people change, they move, they die, families separate, families come together. And if you're not proactive in maintaining your data, then your data will decay. And with that decay will come a decline in the return on investment that you get from all the marketing initiatives and technology initiatives that use that data. So now it's time to put data to work. Now that you've got good quality data, what are you going to do with it to really create that competitive advantage for your organization and generate the ROI? So I've got four key points here to summarize. In the journey towards personalization, marketers first want to segment their customers. Say, try to find groups of customers who have common things in common so that we can talk to them as individuals while talking to thousands of customers. So for instance, a simple age segmentation. So you're going to talk to your seniors audience a lot different than you're going to talk to your millennial audience, for instance. So that would be a really simple segmentation. Many brands are unable to do that because they don't know the age of the customer. They're just a bunch of names in a database. So by enriching the data and having age on it, then you can start to say, okay, I'm going to talk to my millennials this way. Maybe I'm going to reach out to them through SMS messaging or some online channel. And then my seniors, they're not going to be comfortable with that channel. So I'm going to use direct mail to deliver my message to them because they are very comfortable receiving things in the mail and acting on that, or telephone calls. A lot of different ways to segmenting by genders, common, affluence, richer people, middle-class people, lower affluence people. Different ethnicities are possible. So you can look at a database of names, and names can all be scored with what's the ethnic history of that name. Is that a South Asian name? Is that a Eastern European name? Is that a Western European name? Is that a Japanese name? And so by segmenting by ethnicity, then you can start to talk to them in ways that are culturally appropriate for that segment, and maybe recommend products and services that might be more appealing to one ethnicity over another. Proximity is another common one. A lot of large organizations have multiple service centers across the country, and you want to be able to direct people to the nearest service area or the nearest store. So they have to geocode all the customers so they know, okay, we're going to draw a radius around this store, and everybody who's within 10 kilometers, we want to send them this message to tell them about some fantastic thing at the store. So able to segment again that way. Personalization. So being able to use your data to really be personal in your communications, talk about the behavior the last time. We haven't seen you in the store in a while, and invite them back, give them a special offer to come back. You want to make sure that they actually didn't just come to the store when you send them that message, because you're going to look pretty silly. Behavioral triggers. So I mentioned the last purchase date, family deaths, planned moves. These are all triggers that if you can identify certain events occurring with your customer, you can trigger a communication to those customers that is very relevant to them where they are. And then acquisition marketing. So acquisition marketing, of course, is how can we use the data that we have now to go out and find new customers? So there's three common ways that we do this. Well, one is called the territory saturation list. So this is penetration marketing. I work for Costco, and we do this for all the Costco stores across Canada. So we look at where the store is. We look at the proximity that store serves. We've drawn a FSA map or postcode map around that store. We pull out all the households that are meeting customer profile for Costco. They have to own their own home and be middle to high income. So all the homeowners, middle to high income, that live within the proximity of the Costco store, we put them in a database, and then we take all the existing Costco members and we scrub that list, and we end up with net new prospects. So those are all the people in the area who aren't already a Costco member. And then we send them out an invitation to come visit the store and sign up for a membership. It's a simple program, very successful program, but totally relies on having accurate and complete data from both Costco's side and the side that says, give me everybody who lives in the trade area. Another strategy is called lookalike modeling. We're looking at what's the makeup of our existing customer, and then who else looks the same. So an example of this, we do this for a fundraising organization. I'm sure you've heard of the World Wildlife Foundation, WWF. So they have a few million donors in Canada. So we can take those donors and we break them up by region, by provinces in the case of WWF, and we look at what's the makeup of those profiles of donors in terms of demographics. How old are they? They tend to be older. They tend to be more affluent, and they tend to live in more urban areas rather than rural areas. So we have that profile, and then we go and we say, okay, who's everybody in that province that has that same makeup, and then suppress from that list the ones who are already donating to WWF, and then create a campaign to go out and talk to all the acquisition opportunities. So a very successful program that's run using that data. Another example, we call it in-market triggers. New movers is a really good example of a trigger. So we do this for an organization called Ashley Furniture. They're one of the largest retailers in Canada of furniture, home accessories. They operate under several different banners or brands, but they're all across Canada. And what they do is, again, they have several stores, so they define the trade area around each of the retail stores, and they get a list at the beginning of every month of everyone who has just moved, everyone who's just moved into a new home, every address, basically, that has a new homeowner in it. And then they send them out an invitation to come to the store and experience the furniture options that Ashley Furniture has available. People who just moved spend 10 times more than someone who hasn't moved on home furnishings and accessories and home improvements. We do this for windows and doors. We do it for roofing and landscaping, all kinds of different things, alarm systems that new movers buy. Now I'm going to take you through 5 steps on how to get started and how to make this happen in your organization. So step 1 is to focus on where you are currently with your data quality. Okay, so how do you assess data quality? You talk to the users of the data. People who are using the data every day know how good or how bad the data is. So you want to survey them to get feedback on the data quality from their perspective. You want to talk to customers or your customer service department and handle complaints. Customers will complain when you address them wrongly. When you ship things to the wrong address, when you send mailers out or emails out that have wrong information on it, customers will complain, and your customer service department will have records of this. So you want to get a feel from them as to how many problems there are, what's common about those problems, what kind of issues are you seeing? And then lastly, you can get a professional data assessment. So companies like CleanList are able to look at a database and tell you which records are accurate and which ones aren't, and what the problems are with the data. Once you know where you are, you want to implement a data maintenance program. So the data maintenance program is going to involve the internal IT department, because you might be dealing with problems with siloed data. They need to bring data together into one system. You might be dealing with data entry forms that are outdated and don't have validation on it. You need to have some sort of a data maintenance program, because again, the data, like the bananas, gets old and needs to be updated. So it's not ever a one-time process. It's an ongoing process of updating and maintaining your data. Now that you've done that, you can double down on personalization. So you can start to use some of these techniques that I talked about earlier, like segmentation and event triggers, and getting really personal with your customer and talking to them when they haven't been in the store for a while, or thanking them for a purchase that they made recently, or talking to them about a move that occurred recently, and how you might be of assistance in that journey for that customer. And then get creative with data acquisition. So this is starting to do the penetration analysis, the lookalike models, or the triggers, whatever's relevant to your business and your customers. In any kind of analytical marketing program, having your KPIs and metrics defined up front, knowing what you're trying to improve. Are you trying to reduce your return mail and your bounces from your email program? Are you trying to reduce the number of complaints that you get? Are you trying to improve your acquisition rates? Having accurate metrics, KPIs, will allow you to document the journey as you go along. This is a process. It takes time to do this, and it takes a commitment to do this. But this is how you build a competitive advantage over time. There you have it. Your database is your gold mine. I encourage you to get digging. Thanks, everybody.